Welcome to the latest update on the Runcorn Salt layout. Phil here. As you may have remembered from last time, I've been given the job off by Howard of building this building at the entrance to the Runcorn Salt area, and as I explained, I've had very little in the way of dimensions. So I trotted off to a local council building which looked about the same, and at 7 o'clock at night I produced this little diagram in my notepad using a tape measure and hopefully nobody else being around. From that I produced a slightly scaler diagram here which has given me some measurements to work with. But the problem is, if you look at the building, it's very, very regular. We've got, all this needs to be really neat and tidy, and the trouble with that is that cutting that sort of thing is a real challenge. Now I could sit there with a scalpel and there'd be a lot of swearing and it would never be quite as neat and tidy as I'd like. So what I've been using this time is this device here. This is what we call a silhouette cutter. And the silhouette cutter allows us to, it's basically like a computer printer, except inside, if you look inside here, if I take this out, there is a little knife. I don't know if you can see the blade on that. There is a very, very small blade pointing out of there, and it's all computer controlled. Basically, you stuff your material to be cut inside it, fire up the computer, and there you are. It'll generate and cut out all sorts of really wow and exciting things. This slightly battered bicycle, for example, took me only took me less than a minute to cut out from something I downloaded from the web. And you look at it, there's a lot of fine detail there. Some of it that was so fine it broke off when I released it from the sheet. But what it allowed me to do was come up with a design for something to fit onto the outside of the building. Now the plan is I'm going to build the building with a big thick plastic sheet. You can see it's about 3mm thick there, and stick the panels on the outside of it. Now I needed to be able to cut them regularly, so fired up the computer, and from using the design software I was able to draw up the basic of the panel. This is really simple design software. Basically, if there's a red line on screen, it's going to get cut there, and best of all, it allows you to take the measurements and apply them straight on screen. So you can see I can draw a box and it's got the right millimeter measurements on it so that I can just scale it off my plan. Job done. Anyway, once I'd done that, put a sheet of very, very thin plastic card into the cutter, and off it went. And there we are. There it's chopping away at the material. And this is what I ended up with. A sheet of plastic with, I think you can probably just about see that, some heavily engraved lines in there that are the panel. Now, I'm sure it's possible to go all the way through the plastic card, but to be honest, I've messed around with various settings on the machine and it's not playing ball. So what I've got to do after that is I then have to go round and carefully, using a sharp scalpel, just run the scalpel down each line. Now that's actually quite easy to do because the lines are quite deeply engraved, and if I just run the scalpel down the lines, I can pop out the square, and do that until I end up with something that looks a lot like this, which is one of the panels. Once I've cut out the panels, I take my sheet of plastic and I stick them to the face of the plastic, and eventually I'll line them up and I'll get a nice building. The sharp-eyed of you may spot that some of these panels have got more holes in than others, and that's because when I measured the building they had recessed panels there, and when I looked at the photo, something I should have done a little earlier, I realised that they were actually blanked in panels. But that's no problem, because you know what I did? I just fired up the cutter again and made some extra panels to stick over the front of these, which actually, because they're on the Runcorn building they're slightly raised, gave me the right effect, and cutting out an awful lot of very, very accurate rectangles was a really, really simple job using the silhouette cutter. And there we have it. This is the this is one side of the building ready to go. And if you look along it, you can see that all the lines are reasonably nice and straight. And we've got the extra panels in. I've got the brick bit at the end. It's on a good thick bit of plastic, so it's already glazed as well. All I've got to do is finish off the other side and build the rest of the building. So look out for updates in the future, and there'll be more of a write-up on the process of doing this work in the next issue of BRM.